It was a crisp Saturday in early October, and I was mid-shower, shampoo stinging my eyes, when the world went dark. The cabin lights flickered out, and a chainsaw's snarl sliced through the quiet just beyond my window. I froze, thinking it was some half-remembered dream clinging to the morning mist. But the sound roared again, followed by a crack, a pop, and a thud that rattled the walls like the cabin's heart had been cut out. I grabbed a towel, yanked on muddy boots, and stumbled outside, dripping wet, only to find Laura, my neighbor and self-appointed HOA dictator, standing by the fence. She held bolt cutters in one hand and a smug cordless chainsaw in the other, grinning like she'd just trimmed a hedge instead of severing the power line tethering my home to the grid. I asked, voice steady despite the rage, what the hell she thought she was doing. That wire was a blight, she said, as if she'd done me a favor. That's when I knew two things. Laura was unhinged, and this wasn't a spat, it was war. Not the kind with yelling or petty glares by the mailbox. This was going to be a calculated, paperwork-fueled, regulation-heavy war, and I'd make sure Laura regretted every snip of those cutters by winter's first snow. The immediate problem was survival. With the main line down, the well pump died, the fridge began its slow thaw, and my phone's battery dipped to single digits while I tried to reach the utility company. I switched to my backup generator, but it hadn't run since spring and coughed like a sick animal before giving up entirely. The irony burned. The severed line dangled at my property's edge, sparking like a taunt, untouchable without risking a shock or a fine. Laura had planned this just enough to cripple me without sticking around for the fallout. By the time I checked her side of the fence, her silver SUV was gone, probably off to some garden club where she could brag about fixing her view with a $40 tool from Lowe's. I started documenting, close-up photos of the cut, the melted insulation, the bolt cutter marks. I recorded a video of my flickering cabin lights. My dad's old advice echoed, document before you fight. So I documented like a man possessed. That afternoon, I took my case to the HOA board, only to learn Laura had already filed a complaint against me, claiming I'd strung an illegal wire that ruined her visual harmony. Her evidence? A blurry spring photo, taken from her porch roof with binoculars, showing a wire barely visible at my land's edge. The board eyed me like I'd spray-painted their clubhouse, one even asking if I had a permit for the line. I did, installed by the county a decade ago, signed and sealed. I slid the permit PDF across the table, watching Laura lean back, arms crossed, her smugness fraying. The board mumbled about fairness and investigating both sides, but I saw it then. Laura thrived in their spineless culture of polite excuses. She'd gotten away with stunts like this for years because no one pushed back hard enough. But I wasn't just pushing, I was about to bring the county down on her. The next morning, I filed an incident report with the sheriff and a property damage complaint with the Utilities Commission. I emailed every shred of evidence, photos, permits, a timeline of Laura's petty harassments to a county inspector I'd worked with before. By noon, an assistant inspector named Tom called, his voice gruff but all business, asking for the damage's exact location. I gave him coordinates, and he promised to visit by week's end. For 3 days, I turned my cabin into a crime scene. Printed maps, labeled distances, orange tape on the cut line, even a GoPro to catch Laura if she returned. She didn't. Instead, she sipped tea on her porch, eyeing me like a hawk, her glances nervous but defiant. When Tom arrived Friday in his county truck, he surveyed the scene like a detective, taking photos and asking pointed questions. After 30 minutes, he said, "This looks like utility interference and unlicensed tampering. Fines, liability, maybe criminal charges." I tried to hide my grin but failed. By Sunday, Laura got her first county letter. She stormed to my gate, waving it like a war banner, yelling that I was ruining her life over a wire. I stayed calm, saying the county had its process. She called me a weasel. I called her a vandal. She stomped off, muttering empty legal threats. That night, with the power still out, I stood on my dock, coffee brewed on a propane stove, watching the lake glow under the moon. Revenge didn't need fury, just a clipboard and patience to let someone choke on their own arrogance. Monday brought a new twist. Deputy Harris knocked, file folder in hand, looking half annoyed, half amused the usual for a cop patrolling an HOA of retired busybodies who treated parking violations like murder. Over coffee, I walked him through the blackout, Laura's chainsaw, the HOA meeting, and her roadside tantrum. He photographed the melted line and said, "This'll be a circus." I grinned and said it already was. Only now I was selling tickets. He wrote a supplemental report, adding, "Laura's poked bears before, but never one with a filing cabinet." By Wednesday, Laura escalated, planting wooden stakes along my driveway, painted white with reflective stickers, claiming an HOA restricted zone that cut 10 feet into my land. A handwritten sign screamed, "Private property do not cross." I called Harris, who arrived with a measuring stick, confirming the stakes were on my property. He suggested a surveyor, so I hired Jim, a grizzled pro with a GPS scanner. Jim's verdict: they're either idiots or brazen. His notarized report became my next weapon, emailed to every resident with the subject, "Boundaries matter." Laura went quiet, retreating into her house like a cornered animal. But late Saturday, my trail cam pinged with a blurry figure near my woodshed, tampering with my utility box. I found a bent latch and a muddy footprint. I didn't touch it, just photographed and called the county. Inspector Wes, young but sharp, confirmed an attempted breach, possibly with a pry bar, and added it to the case. That night, an anonymous email sent me HOA meeting minutes showing Laura's plan to ban overnight guests, targeting my nephew's summer visit. Her pettiness was staggering, but the leak proved she had enemies within. The county's case grew. Tom returned with a code officer, scanning the line's path with laser precision. They confirmed Laura's cut was deliberate, carrying a $10,000 fine and potential criminal penalties. The HOA pushed mediation, but I refused, citing the county's investigation. Laura's desperate forum post, painting herself as a victim, backfired as neighbors shared their own stories of her tyranny, noise complaints, mailbox vandalism, even a shed demolition threat. Her authority crumbled. One night, I caught a figure by my dock, leaving a bag of rotting fruit tied to a post-textbook intimidation. Harris filed another report, warning, "This ends with eviction or a lawsuit." Laura's final plea came in an unsigned letter, begging to settle privately. I sent it to Tom. Then, during a storm, I found my workshop's security light tampered with muddy fingerprints on the wiring. I requested a county camera trailer, and by evening, it sat behind my shed, infrared lenses watching. Laura noticed, glaring through binoculars. The HOA's bulletin against private surveillance was laughable. I countered with my permit code. Neighbors rallied, one posting, "No wire cutting, no cameras." Momentum shifted. Late one night, a government SUV visited Laura, delivering a document that left her shaken. The next day, new HOA signs private use only, board approval required sparked outrage. The treasurer, Ellen, exposed Laura's unauthorized budget, and an emergency meeting suspended her. A county follow-up flagged an illegal ground loop on Laura's property, plus falsified HOA invoices. Criminal charges loomed. 3 days after a $10,000 fine notice, a moving van took Laura away. Her house sat empty, blinds shut, porch plants dead. Ellen asked me to advise the HOA on new safeguards. I agreed, not for glory, but to prevent another Laura. At a barbecue by my dock, neighbors bonded, free from her shadow. A sketch left on a paper plate called me guardian of the lake. I tucked it away, standing on my dock under solar lights, coffee in hand, knowing peace wasn't given, it was earned, and no one would take it again.